Hey everybody, it's Clint. Welcome to Sweetcast. Now, if I was an artist, I could do all sorts of really interesting things in time lapses with drawing, and for a writer, it is not all that interesting. But I did think that it is pretty crazy when I think about it as to how much writing I am in the midst of doing, and and YouTube ends up being another thing that I have to do. Anyway, so I have a couple works in progress here, and yeah, I just wanted to talk a bit about being an actual writer in comics. And as far as I know, this is essentially what it's like. You are already working a full time job because you just have to. And then two, you probably have multiple writing jobs at the same time. Beyond that, I also am in charge of publishing all of this stuff. So there's that too. But I think basically that's how it is to be a writer in comics. Even if you're working for Marvel and DC, chances are you still have a full time job somewhere else because it's just not going to pay ends meet. Um, but I am sort of reveling in the fact that I've got all this writing to do that presumably people are going to read. So I'm really excited about that. Anyway, one other aspect of this, so I'm writing, there's a creative thing, but there's also like the viability. This is Narwhal announced this, but we're gonna do some little crossover, very short crossover stories that are pretty silly. Dracula and Nosferatu go to the dentist. This is a work in progress. You'll notice here, Monstro number one. I'm actually not calling that Monstro number one. I'm calling that Monstro Wake. That is the working title of this. So pretty excited about it, and neither of these you could read what you want. These are not even close to being finished products. But part of it is I'm always thinking about the marketability of comics in my genre, and Dracula has been a big one on my mind because to me it has to be black and white. Like it really needs to be black and white. But then should it be in color though? People want color, but isn't that kind of the thing? Anyway, I am definitely looking over here at Jack the Ripper Vampire Hunter. Mandy Summers and Peter Gilmore, just had to double check. Peter Gilmore did this book together, and they're seriously killing it. They're $56,000 on, I think, a black and white book. I don't know if they're adding color to this at all. I don't think they need to. It looks fantastic. But really cool success story. Vampires involved, serial killer or not involved, and yeah, looks like black and white. Really, really, really impressive artwork too. That looks great. Anyway, this has me thinking a lot about a comfort. Anyway, some level of comfort. So from here, Dracula is actually written. There's always, for me, it's not finished until I go back and uh, correct dialogue, dial it in. Essentially, that's part of my process, and I'd like to think that it's not, and I could just write a script and give it to an artist and be done with it. But when I'm also in charge of publishing it, I have to make sure it's right, and being able to see the drawings, the characters acted out. Sometimes I change the dialogue to make it work. And then obviously, if you see a moment where you need to add a little bit of clarity to the artwork with some dialogue that's just more specific or more on the nose sometimes, then you got to do it. I think clarity is super important. Anyway, I actually write in Microsoft Word. I know. There are plenty other software out there, programs you could do to write scripts. I've tried some, but at the end of the day, I'm just familiar with Microsoft Word and I end up using it all the time. So this is my format. It's pretty basic. And usually what I end up doing is I will write out the visuals first. So I'll go panel one, page one, panel one, write out the visuals. I know that there's going to be dialogue there, and I know that there's some exchanging of words, and I'll go ahead and just move on to panel two, and I get the visuals down at least for a few pages. And then I go back and then I actually fill in the dialogue and make sure that those visuals work. But for some reason, for me, filling the pacing and just the different beats sort of in my head and writing the visuals out, it just makes more sense to me and it feels like a more comfortable and natural way to write. So that is how I do it. I don't complete everything, page by page. It's sort of like I'm scanning over a document and I sort of do it in different runs. Now, once I go through and do the dialogue, I will continue on and add, more pages, build it out, start again going scene by scene, and I'll again go back, reread what I've already written, change things, delete things, sometimes scrap the entire document altogether, start over, and that is definitely my process. Not exciting to watch at all, not at all, but so necessary to good comics. So that's Nosferatu, and then I'm gonna pull up Monstro Wake here. And again, this is first draft. I'm not going to even scroll down at all. I'm just going to show you that. That's all I'm showing you so far. And likely I've already thought of a bunch of reasons why this needs to be deleted and started over again. But when I'm actually doing this, I could say by Clint Stoker, and I can also say for this particular issue by Christian Rossi. So there's a little bit of an announcement for you. And I'm pretty excited about this Monstro project. It's going to change just a little bit from how I initially intended things to go, but I think in a very good way. But when I know the artist that I'm writing for, I also try to write to their strengths. Now that's obviously going to work better if I know that artist. If I've worked with them before, then I know how it's going to translate over, my writing to their artwork. Otherwise it's sort of just a little bit of guessing based off of what I've seen before. But that is definitely part of the process as I am writing. Got to think of the artist. So the one here is Narwhal on the one, which is super fun. One total end of the spectrum, very short story as well. And then over here, Christian Rossi. Obviously I work with Nacho Lazaro, Donald DeLay, and every single one of them has very different strengths, but it has been really fun to work with each of them as a writer because you have to think about that. So I feel like a brain overload sometimes, and it can be paralyzing. And I actually think that can sometimes cause writer's block. You have to get through it, but that is just because you have to consider: is this going to sell well? What are the readers going to be thinking about this? How is the artist going to portray this? And so on and so on. You could probably continue making the list, but ultimately I think the more you can focus in on the story, get excited about it, that's always the best writing, is when you're excited about the story and you can just go through it with ease, at least that one draft of it, and go back and scrutinize it later. But if you can get a draft through of it, just really enjoying the story, getting into it as you're writing, that is exactly where you want to be. So anyway, just some other things to think about as a writer, and I guess a few little announcements stuffed in there. So one thing with this Monstro series is I'm going to do this a little bit differently. I would have called this Monstro #1, but I'm actually going to do a mini series. They're a series of one shots that, yes, they're in continuity, and yes, there's maybe some aspects that build off one another, but you could actually read them totally independently and enjoy the story. There's not going to be anything you're missing out on. So they'll all be connected pretty well. A one complete story, and they're all building to something bigger. So I don't know. I think it's pretty fun. I'm pretty excited about that. And the plan is to release them on the website, but I am interested to know what you all think. I know a lot of people are like, why go away from Indiegogo? Well, I mean, trying to not put all your eggs in one basket, I think, is important. And again, I'm just talking about on my own website, so I think it's worth trying. But I don't know. I'm open to suggestions for sure. So yeah, let me know what you think, and I'm gonna get back to writing. Thanks so much. See you in the next video.